Hello, my advanced computer application wizards. We are going to go over some Excel review before we dive deep into our Excel unit. You're going to need to open up this document with me. It's got 3 tabs at the bottom, Review B, C, and D. We're going to start with the shopping spree one, so if you haven't downloaded that yet out of Canvas, you're going to want to do that first. And you should have a link to it, but it's in the Files, ACA Excel Intro, and it's the only document in the folder. You're going to click the 3 arrows and download it. And when prompted as to where to put it, be sure you put it on your OneDrive in a folder for Excel so that you have it. And then you're going to open that up and work with me. I'm going to go over some terminology, some stuff that you should know because you did it in computer apps. But if it's been a while since you've had computer apps, you may not remember it. And I will tell you that this assumes that you know all the chapters that have come before it. So if it's been a long time, you know, there's 4 chapters of Excel. Like, you know, we're talking about a big chunk of a textbook, like more than this of this textbook worth of Excel that they're just assuming that you remember. We're also skipping chapter 5. We're doing chapter 6 and 7 because chapter 5 is dealing with multiple workbooks. And as far as the time that we have, I didn't feel like really that was worth our time. So we're not going to get into multiple workbooks. There's a few things from that chapter I am going to talk about, and I'll do that as we do these. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to listen to me. I would, if I were you, probably open this up on your Chromebook and have me plugged in so you can listen, and then watch on your Chromebook, but do on your computer. Or you can split your screen on the computer, of course, but you know, you can see everything a lot better if you get out your Chromebook. It's up to you. And I would strongly suggest that you go ahead and pick up the next unit overview sheet and maybe make some notes on the back in case you have trouble with the terminology. Okay? Excel has a lot more working parts, moving parts, if you will, than Word. On the Home tab, we have our typical buttons, but we also have a conditional formatting button. Conditional formatting is something that you should be aware of. Conditional formatting is what allows you to set something so that it turns a certain color if it meets certain criteria. Or you can even do other things too. It's kind of exciting. Like, for instance, if we're looking at prices over here, I'm going to do this and then undo it. But I could say, select all of these things. And then I could go to conditional formatting and I could say, you know, I want to highlight cells if they are greater than, and then I could have like, you know, any product that's more than $50 is going to be light red. And see, it automatically is going to do that. So that's pretty cool. That's conditional formatting. It just knows. There's other things up here under conditional formatting too, like you can highlight specific cells with certain dates, or if they have certain words, or if there's duplicate values, if somebody's in there more than once. There's even color scales, which are kind of cool, so that in certain areas, there's certain amounts. You can see like the lower price ones are red and the highest price ones are green. So you can set color scales. Data bars are similar to that, but they're sort of like little bar charts. And you can do more things with these too. They come up and you can set like minimum and maximum values and that sort of thing. So those are pretty popular and very useful. You've got your number button here where you can set your numbers for things. You should already know these because these were used in regular Excel, regular computer apps Excel. Let's go ahead and together, let's go ahead and rotate these up a bit. You should know this also from computer apps. Right here under the alignment tab, we have orientation. We can angle those up like so that they fit in there and we can see them a little bit better. You could go custom on that if you go all the way down to format cell alignment, and then you could actually choose the exact, you know, direction that you want. I don't have mine highlighted here, but you can choose the exact like number of degrees that you wanted here. So if I didn't want it to go quite so far over, I could do it like so. Okay, so anyway, those are buttons you should already be aware of. Wrap text you should already be aware of. Merge and center you should already be aware of. So those are nothing that's new. You've also done styles before, so you can apply various styles depending on what something is. And then we've got our Autosum button, which should be one that you're pretty familiar with as well. Autosum has a drop down, so you can choose to sum numbers, but you can also choose to average or find the highest, lowest, or count how many of something. So on this, we're going to do a few of those things. So maximum, minimum, and average, and count. You should already know how to do these. I would encourage you to pause right now and do it on your own. and then see if I do it the way you did it. This is practice, so you know it's just practice to see what you can remember. Now let me go over some terminology right here for you, okay? There are terms used in the SAM projects, and they're going to say formulas, or they're going to say functions, or they're going to say like comparison operators, or they're going to say arithmetic operators. And you really have to understand all of those terms. So formulas consist of cell references and operators. So think like it's a mad scientist and he puts together some of this and some of this, and there's like all weird periodic table of elements, letters and numbers things happening. Like that's a formula, okay? There's all kinds of different stuff happening, and it's all mixed together. A function is a faster way of doing this. And functions have parentheses. So functions are very sophisticated. It's a faster way to do the formulas. You have text. You have then some of that other stuff. So a function has an equal sign, and so does a formula. And then a function has a word, and then it has parentheses. And inside those parentheses are what we call the argument. And that's what you put all that in there. Okay, and then when we're doing formulas, we're either going to have arithmetic operators. Those are math operators like plus, minus, divide, and multiply, and slash and asterisk are your divide and multiply. And then comparison operators are equals, greater than, less than, not equal to, which is this third one here where you have two of them pointing at each other. That means not equal to. Greater than or equal to, like if it's both of those, you would put both of them together, or less than equal to. Those are all comparison operators, okay? And then finally, you should remember absolute and relative references. Absolute references are references that when we point to them, we're always pointing to that spot. They don't update whenever you copy a formula or function. Relative references do automatically update, okay? Now, I've already done the math for you on this first one here. I did go ahead and do this one, although I was going to leave it for you to do. But just as a reminder, you can change the order of operations by utilizing parentheses. So you could see here, we're doing price times quantity. So we have to say B5 times C5 plus D5. Technically, my math kids in here should know we don't need parentheses on this one because multiplication, PEMDAS, multiplication is going to be done before addition or subtraction. So technically it's not even needed on this one, but so in your head you can see what's happening. Price times quantity plus the tax amount is going to give us that total price. To figure out the tax rate, this is the one that has to point over here, okay? So if I multiplied this one times this one, B5 times C5, and then I multiplied times the tax rate, 0.075. If I just typed in 0.075, that's not even a reference. That's just typing in a number. And we try to avoid that when possible. Because if the tax rate changes, all we got to do is come over here and update it. Done. And then everything fixes. If we put 0.075 here, we got to go lots of places to fix that formula later on. Okay, and again, this is a formula. This one's equals and pluses and minuses and stars and all that stuff. This is not using words, okay? So anyway, this is what we call an absolute reference. So pointing to this every single time is an absolute reference. If I would have just said this times this times, and I'll just get rid of it and put my times in again, and then clicked here, so it says I4, when I hit enter and then when I copy it down, remember you use the fill handle to copy down, what it's doing is it's jumping down here as we copied. So this second one is looking at I5, and this one's looking at I6, and this one's looking at I7. That's a hot mess, okay? Also, when you fill down, you might have forgotten this little thing pops up. This is the little thing that lets you know, how do we want to do this? Like, for instance, this one, this is messing up my formatting. If I was going to do this on this document with the banded colors, I would tell it to fill without the formatting so that it would not change colors, okay? But that still doesn't fix the problem on this one, which is we needed to use an absolute reference so that I doesn't update to I6, I7, I8, I9, and so forth. So an absolute reference, if we click up in there, when you typed that one in or clicked in the cell, you're just going to press, you've got different little buttons up here. I don't know if you remember, F4 is going to, oops, let me get back in here. There. F4 is going to toggle between adding those dollar signs. If you keep pressing F4, it chooses which cell is going to be absolute. In our case, we want both to be absolute. So it's $I, $4, enter. And then I could copy this down and it would all be good. But again, I don't want to mess up my formatting, so I would fill without formatting. Okay? All right, now here's where I want you to pause and do these. Then unpause, come back, and let's see if we did it the same way. Okay, here I am. Maximum. I'm going to use my Autosum to do this. Now, one thing that you could do would be, since we're looking at the maximum price here, and I didn't really specify whether you should do the maximum, since these are the items, right? We would just look at this column. So what I would personally do would be, I would select all of these, okay? And I would name this, and this is called a named range. And you probably didn't do it this way, and that's okay. This is called a named range. So I'm going to call this item prices, and I'm going to hit enter. And now the computer's automatically going to know that those cells are called item prices. So when I go in here to do this, I'm going to do a function. So I'm going to hit equals max, because that's the function I'm going to use. I'm going to open parentheses. And then instead of going up here and highlighting all these, which there's totally nothing wrong with doing, I'm going to type in the name of my range, which is item prices. And when I do that, notice it highlights all of those. And then all I have to do is close my parentheses, and bam, we're good to go. And it should give me that my maximum, the highest priced item here was the singing machine. Same thing with minimum. I would do equals min, open parentheses, and I would do item prices again. And if it pops up, you press tab and then close parentheses. Same thing with average. Average actually is spelled out. It's not AVG. And again, you could have selected that range yourself and that would have been fine. Count is counting how many. Now, this gets confusing, but I put a note out here to the side. Count is used for counting cells that have numbers in them. So it counts non-blank number cells. So if you're going to count this column that has those numbers, my item prices, if I'm going to count that column, I would use count. If I was going to count the column of the words, I would use count A. Count A is used for counting non-blank text. Okay? So I'll do, it's because I want to use my item prices one again, I'm going to choose count. It's going to count how many cells have numbers. And you should get 18 cells. Again, if you chose to count words, you would use a count A instead of a count. Okay? Now, we're going to do a count. We want to count it. If it's Jill, we want to get it. And then this other one, if it's Johnny, then we want to count how many. So this one gets to be a little more confusing. This is what's called a Countif. Now, I'm going to use the function button on this one. So I can choose Countif. You can type it in, or I type it in. So it says Countif. So we're going to count if in the range, the criteria equals something. So our range for this one is here. So in these, now this is not going to get the one that has Johnny and Jill, because that would be both of them. And then the criteria here is Jill. Although I guess, let's see. Well, we'll go back in and see if we put a star in there, if we can get the Johnny and Jill one. Okay, we hit OK. We're going to get 8. And because these other ones were formatted weird, it has like 800. So you're probably going to come here and decrease your decimal because that looks kind of weird. So there's Jill. And then same thing for Johnny. And I can't just copy and paste down, because if I do, that F5 to F22 isn't going to fix. However, or because it's going to go down one, right? However, I could make this absolute. So I'm going to click in here and do F4 and F4 and hit enter. That doesn't change anything, but now I can copy, I can copy this one down. It's going to give me the same answer, but I'm just going to change this to Johnny and hit enter. And there are 9, okay? Now, let's go in here and see if we could possibly get this fixed with a star. I really don't know. If it has Jill anywhere in the name, then we would be using a wildcard, which we used in Access. Oh, there we go. Look, now I have 9. And then if we do the same thing with Johnny with a wildcard, we should get 10. There we go. Isn't that fun? Excel's kind of exciting. I mean, it's like you are a mad scientist, honestly. Okay, so there's that one. Hopefully, all of that should have been review. None of that should have been new. I don't remember if we did a Countif or not, but everything else you should have done in regular computer apps. All right, I'm going to have you to try to do some of this on your own. I did leave one of these filled in for you so that you can kind of see how it's done. So here's one that's an average. You know how to average. And then here is an if function. And I wanted to leave this if function in so you have it as an example. So let's look at this one. This is a try of an if function. An if is a conditional statement. So let me go ahead and click on here and click the button so we can look at the parts of an if function. An if function has a logical test. That's what are we examining? That is going to involve comparison operators. It's going to involve greater thans, less thans, or equal signs, or a combination of those. And it has to involve at least one cell. So we have to have some sort of logical test. In this case, we're looking at Amy, E23. We're looking at Amy's average GPA. And the instructions say if you made a GPA of 3.5 or higher, you get $10 for each grade point. But if you got lower than 3.5, you don't get anything. You get the word none in your box. Okay? So we're looking here at Amy, her financial reward. Her average was 3.42. So we're taking her 3.42, and we're looking to see, is it greater than or equal to 3.5? And it's not. So this box actually tells us it's false for her. Okay, if it was true, then we would take 10. The GPA gets multiplied by 10, so E23 times 10. If it's false, like it is with Amy, we want the words none to show up in the box. And that's all that that means. So when you hit OK, we get none here. For this second one, I'm going to double click it. You can see if E24, so if Barbie's GPA is greater than or equal to 3.5, and it is, then if it's true, we take 10 times her GPA. And it is true for her, so we are taking 10 times her GPA. And we get 35. Okay? So that's basically how that one works. That one's done for you, so you kind of have it as an example. This one's also already done for you. This is if B8 equals blue. If it does equal blue, we get a free hug. If it does not equal blue, it's a 0. Okay, and again, I can click this button to bring this up, and you can see the format for that. And then we filled down. So again, remember to fill down, you just click on the cell after you've hit enter, grab a hold of the crosshairs, and pull down. All right, that one's done for you. The rest of these are for you to try on your own. We have this one here. You got to figure out your total sales. And then your bonus prize, it says if you made more than $50 on the fundraiser, you get a gas card. If not, you get a sticker. So first you're going to do the math to determine total sales. Then you're going to determine the bonus prize using an if statement. Okay. Down here at the bottom, you are going to do these absolute functions. The cost of a candy bar is here. Absolutely. That means whenever we use that in this function, we're going to have those $2 signs going on there. We're going to have F4 around that when it points to those. Okay, same thing here. We're going to be multiplying before taxes times that sales tax rate to get the tax amount. And then we're going to take that answer and add those together because that's how much you're going to pay all together. So that's the next one that you'll do. This one here gets to be a little more confusing. You're going to do a count how many had sales. Notice that Rachel didn't have any sales. So hers is going to be blank. So you are going to use a function here. Here's your sales tax rate. But this time, we're not just going to multiply this times this because that would give us the tax amount. On this one, you got to write a formula that does all of it. It's got to determine the sales tax, and it's going to, after it determines the sales tax, have to add the two together. Okay? Kind of a challenge problem there. So that's the next one for you to do. Okay, once you get that finished, I want you to set this to go to review D. This is by creating a hyperlink. You can create hyperlinks pretty simply by going to the link if you right click. And you can choose to link to other documents, places in this document. So if I've defined names like I did for item prices, I could make this link me to that. Or I said go to review D. So we're going to go to Review D. We'll hit OK. And now we actually have a button here, and if we click on it, it takes us here to Review D. Isn't that fun? I know my definition of fun is probably not like yours. Okay, finally, this last tab. So this is going to separate the men from the boys, if you will. This is going to have a VLOOKUP. Now, we will do a VLOOKUP in advanced computer apps, but you did an HLOOKUP in regular computer apps, not that you remember it. So I'm going to challenge you to just follow the steps to try to figure that out, because I think you can do it on your own. Notice that you've got lots of different ones to do on this one. So first thing here is perfect attendance. So we're going to look and see if they don't have any sick days. So if they have a 0, then they would have perfect attendance. So we're going to have our if statement here to determine whether they have perfect attendance. So we're just going to have yes or no here. Okay, but you're going to have an if statement that's going to put that yes or no there. All right, then we have how many sick days are left. So we're going to take how many sick days that they're allowed, which is here. So it's an absolute reference. It's over there. And we're going to subtract how many sick days they have used. And then that's going to give us this. So this will just be a formula, not a function, that's going to be pointing absolutely here. And then females with perfect attendance, we're going to look and see if they have perfect attendance. And we're also going to determine whether or not they're female. So it's going to look at those two things. Okay, that one's a little bit tricky. I'm going to challenge you to figure out how to do that one without me telling you. Okay, but that means there's two criteria. They have to have a 0 here. They have to have perfect attendance. And they have to have a female. My hint here is the word and. Okay, and. All right, so think on that one. All right, down here, volunteer activity. You're going to count the total number of volunteers. So how many have an X? This is text this time. This is not words. Or not numbers. And then we are going to say cool people volunteer. So if this equals an X, they're cool. And if this does not equal an X, they are uncool. So an if statement's going to go in here and you're going to pull down. Over here is an if error function. So this is, we're just dividing the things. Okay, so you're going to take 100 and you're going to divide by this one, right? And here's the problem. If you know much about math, you know you can't divide by 0. And you'll get this weird error about divide by 0. Okay? So what you can do is you can create using what's called an if error function so that it won't throw those errors. Okay? So here's how that is done. I'm going to actually just copy and paste this part because I am going to use that, but then I'm going to delete this. Okay. So I'm going to start off using an if error. If error. I pressed tab. It says value. So here's the value. The value is do the division. Okay. Comma. Value if error. So if you were doing this in practical use, any function or formula that you were going to do would go in that first space where it says value. Even if I had to do like an if function or a max or something, whatever. Okay. But the reality is, after the comma, it's what do you want to show up in this cell instead of an error, because there are certain things that might cause an error. In this case, dividing by 0. Okay. So I don't know, we would say it's not possible or something like that. So if that's what I wanted to show up, I would just put in quotation marks and say not possible, or like n/a, right? Something like not applicable, and then hit enter. And now if I pull that down, on the ones that divide by 0, instead of dividing by 0, it's going to give me that not applicable in there. That's an if error. The book will assume you already know how to do if errors, I'm pretty sure. So make sure that you make a few notes about that if that's new for you. Okay, and then finally here, most of the rest of this you should already know how to do. Average worked per quarter. So we're taking an average of these. Total worked. We're not adding the average in there. We're just totaling 1 through 4 here. So you're going to have some nice simple functions here that you can pop in and then drag down. And then vacation days earned. Well, this is a vacation day table. And based on the hours they've worked, they accumulate certain numbers of days. Okay? This is one that we will learn in this unit. It's called a VLOOKUP. You should have done an H lookup in regular computer apps, so I'm going to challenge you to try to figure this one out. You can always go out and Google it if you have to. But in order to do this, you're going to be using a V lookup, and then this is going to be your table over here. Okay. Same thing on this one. We're going to look here. Did they meet their fundraiser goal? So the fundraiser goal is in this box, absolutely. So that's going to have the dollar signs. And then we have to compare their sales with the fundraiser. So something equal to, greater than or equal to, right, is going to tell us whether they met the fundraiser goal, yes or no. And then we're going to be looking up in this bonus table, you know, if they're bronze, what's the bonus amount? So if this equals bronze, we get this amount. And that's what you're going to do. Another V lookup here to determine that bonus earned. Okay? So lots of little things for you to figure out on your own. It's like a little scavenger hunt, isn't it? Exciting. That's what you're going to do. So work together. You can work with each other trying to figure it out. Use a little bit of Googling if you have to figure up the V lookup. But the rest of it, I think for the most part, you should be good to go on your own. I will, of course, go over these with you later on. But I really want you to try to figure out, like pull from your brain and see what it is you can remember. All right? Good luck.